Flyers up.
Perfect. Okay, so we are setting up our live.
We are live. Live action news.
Oh. Okay. Okay. Do you see the screensaver flyer, Cole, still?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, great. So we are now.
Howard looks like a movie star in that picture.
Okay, awesome. We are live now. So we're live on YouTube and on Facebook. Okay. Got that here. Perfect. And we'll give everybody a couple minutes to join. Okay, let's watch the okay. We're welcoming everybody in now. People are joining us, which is great. Okay, Allie Taylor coming in. Welcome everybody. We are going to start. We have a special guest speaker with Howard Glowinsky today. For right now, we have everybody on mute as we let everybody into our event here. We are also broadcasting this for people to be able to watch later, which is great. And we are live, and this is great. Letting people in. We're scheduled to start this talk about the Jewish approach to business dilemmas, how to maintain our Jewish values, combating anti-Semitism, being a strong Jew, something we need to hear more and more about in today's day and age. And we will be starting in just 3 minutes. So everybody who's here, sit tight, hang tight, maybe grab a little seltzer, and we'll be starting in just a couple minutes. Okay.
Got the famous Judy Brown in the building. You know it's gonna be a good event every time Judy shows up.
Exactly. I'm gonna co-host Judy so she could let more people in.
Perfect. Thank you, Cole.
Okay. What? Close the door, please. No? Oh. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, we for all those who just joined us, thank you for joining us. We're just gonna wait a couple more minutes for everybody to join. I see Orly and Zoe and Maya, Michael, Luis, Jonah, Aviva, Ali. Welcome everybody. We did not turn on everybody's mic for right now. Maybe at the end we'll have some time, but in the meantime, if anybody does have questions, there is an open chat as we go along this very special talk that we're going to be having today. Feel free to jump into the chat if you need, or you could message me directly with any questions that you have. We'll just wait 1 or 2 more minutes as more people are joining in. If you are seeing us on live Facebook or YouTube channel, feel free to jump into our Zoom if you'd like to. And that was by RSVP only. So you have to email Judy at jewishyouth.ca and she can get you in, or you could watch it on our live channels as well. So it's great to be together, and it's great to have our wonderful alumni emceeing this event, which we'll talk about in just a moment, Mary and Cole. And it is actually now 3:45. So we are just about ready to start this event. And we are going to start right now. Okay, starting on time. Let's stop share. Let's bring everybody over. Our MCs will help us with welcoming more people in as we go along. And I am going to start. My name is Shmuley, Rabbi Shmuley from the Jewish Youth Network. And today we just finished Shavuot, just after the holiday of Shavuot yesterday. the giving of the Torah. And we all know that we are living in a very, I should say, very unique times, challenging times for sure. And we can't get more encouragement and strength in our Jewish identity, in our morals and our values, in who we are as young people, as older people, as a nation. And the more we could spend time hearing about that, understanding it, is the stronger it makes us as a people, as a nation. So today, we're going to be hearing from Howard Glowinsky. But before we jump over to Howard and ask him to speak and tell us about his story and his strength as a Yid, as a Jew, as a proud Jew, and how that works within his heart and his soul, I want to start off by saying that when we have these special talks over the last little while, we've been very lucky to have some of the JYN alumni jump in and help host them. And I love that because, it's always nice. I guess everybody loves to hear from me, I'm sure, right? Okay, yeah, everybody's got their thumbs up on that. But it's certainly nice to have the alumni jump in and introduce, question our speaker, and ask questions that are relevant and connect them to us. So as I mentioned before, we're not going to have the everybody's mic open, but please listen carefully. And if you do have a question, feel free to put it into the chat, and Cole or Mary will pick it up at the end. I'd like to introduce our MCs for today's special event. Cole Resnick and Mary Stone, both former JYN presidents, and they've taken out of their busy day and whatever it is that they're doing, and to co-host this event. So I really appreciate that. And I want to compliment you both in the fact that you stayed connected with JYN, with the Jewish community, and actively involved, and are both very proud Jewish people, young people. And it's a beautiful example that you set. And we should all find ways to be active in the community, in the Jewish community, as we, especially in these times, to stay engaged in the conversation and continue educating ourselves. So before we jump over to hear from Howard, I want to just take a quick moment and ask Cole to introduce himself, and then we'll jump over to Mary, and then we start our program.
All right. Thank you so much, Rabbi Shmuley. And thank you for having me back. We did a great event last week, and very glad to be back hosting again. And thank you so much, Howard, for coming along and sharing your story. A little bit about myself. I have been affiliated with JYN now for coming on 9 years now. Started off just going to the regular classes, and then ended up joining the ambassador program, which eventually led to me being president. And I've maintained my Jewish identity throughout all these times, and the Jewish Youth Networks really helped strengthen my identity. And as Shmuley was saying before, it's a very interesting time right now with everything that's going on, and these kind of events that we can bring light and hear the stories about the passion towards Judaism and what we do. It's truly incredible, and I'm blessed to be here. And I will forever be affiliated with Jewish Youth Network. And my cousin Mary's now going to introduce herself and the incredible person that she is, and the involvement that she's had in JYN as well. Very glad to be here, and thank you so much. I appreciate it, Rabbi Shmuley, for having me back.
Wow, thank you so much, Cole, and thank you, Rabbi Shmuley, so much for your kind words. It's lovely to meet you, Howard, and I'm so happy to be here again hosting this event. I think hosting these events is probably one of my favorite things that I've done in the past little while. It makes me feel super connected with my Judaism and the community, and especially times like this. That's so important more than ever. Just a little bit about me. I have been a part of JYN now for around 5 years. I joined in grade 9 and did the classes. I then as well moved on to be an ambassador for 3 years, and then I was the president of JYN in my senior year of high school. I as well ran a peer mentoring program called JYN Connect, where we mentored the youth, and that was a really amazing opportunity for me. I think now more than ever in times like this, it's important to group together as a community and just go back to your roots and remember why it's so important to study Judaism, be a part of the community, and just be connected with all of you. So I feel extremely fortunate to be here with you all hosting this event, and I look forward to hearing more about you, Howard, and your story. And I'm just really thankful to be here. So thank you guys. Nice to meet you all. And I'm going to hand it over to you, Rabbi Shmuley.
Okay, so just before we get started here, I wanted just a quick introduction for Howard. Howard has been a good friend of myself and a supporter. Him and his family his wife Claire, and the kids. They've been involved in JYN for quite a long time. All the kids have been involved in our youth programs and throughout the years, and have taken a leadership role mostly in the TFC program, Teams for the Community, doing Chesed. And actually, just to quickly mention, and it's something for everybody, because people are reaching out all the time, how can we help other people due to COVID, and especially now with Israel? Everybody feels the feelings that we feel of turmoil that's going on. And I've been getting calls, so many, about what could we do? What could we do? How can we help people in need? And how can we help people in Israel? So it's easy to post things on the internet and this and that and the other, but everybody wants action, and what can we do? And to the Glowinsky children's credit, all of them, that when the whole COVID started, it was so heartwarming for me to hear from one of them representing the rest of the children, saying, as a family, they wanted to do some kindness in the community, and we worked together to try and help some needy families. And that's not what we're talking about today, but it's really testament to the chesed that we need to do as a community, and that the Glowinskys do in the community. And I'm excited to hear Howard's inspiration. So without further ado, Howard, why don't you take it away and tell us a little bit about who are you? Where do you come from? What's going on? Who's this Howard guy? Go ahead, Howard, it's all you.
Okay, thank you very much, Rabbi Shmuley, Mary and Cole. Nice to meet you again. I do remember being at the JYN dinners and hearing your stories and seeing the videos that were produced, and hearing of your great accomplishments. So may you continue to go from strength to strength, keep building in your Yiddishkeit, and support for the community, which is so desperately needed. It's so hard to find people to step up. So thank you for stepping up. A little bit about myself, my background. Both of my parents, Ruth and Isaac, I'm happy to have them on this call. Were born in Europe during and after World War II. They would be classified as Jewish refugees from Poland. They made their way with their parents, their families. They were young, through DP camps, and they made their way to Toronto after the war. They met and married in Toronto. Most of their lives, they were raised in Toronto. I was born and raised here. I went to Jewish day school. It was a struggle for my parents to do what they had to do to make sure that I got a Jewish education. I remember it was my mother telling me, 1 year at a time, we put you in nursery. We didn't know if we were going to continue. And they were very impressed. And they felt that it was a good education, a good program, and they continued along. So I managed to graduate through Jewish day school. And part of the struggle that the people before you face, I think, comes to you, and you realize the struggle that other people go to, what something means to them, and you take it on yourself. You're willing to take on responsibility because you see things that others have gone. You try to fill the shoes of giants who came before you. I went on to public high school, University of Toronto, undergraduate. I studied to become a CPA, worked for a couple of years in that area. And I went on to work in my family roofing business, started my grandfather, and I've been working with my father now for over 25 years together. I'm married to my wife, Claire, my high school sweetheart. We have 5 children, including my son-in-law, Ben. We're very proud that Rabbi Shmuley co-officiated at their wedding and gave them Chassan Kala classes, which was amazing. And not to mention that Sunny also spent time with my daughter and gave her the instruction and guidance that she needed at that very crucial time in their lives. I'm a proud lover and defender of Israel. Our son, Sam, our number 3 child, served in the IDF as a lone soldier and paratrooper brigade. I feel that we have to defend Israel as Jews. We have to be able to be willing to voice our criticism at policies when needed. And we shouldn't be shy about it, but remember that we have an Israel and start to defend. We have to be there to defend it, because if we don't, who else will? As the great sage Hillel said, if I'm not for myself, who will be for me?
Absolutely love that. And thank you so much for the intro. And I got a question for you now. I mean, everybody has their own way of finding their path in Judaism and their enlightenment. I just want to ask you, what was your starting point into, becoming so passionate about Israel and growing your Jewish family and keeping that identity so strong?
Okay. So one of the things, soon after we got married, My parents were very active in Jewish communal life throughout my childhood years. I remember going to rally after rally for Soviet refuseniks. We felt like we had to take part. Like we couldn't leave it to somebody else. We had to be active and engaged. After we got married, I remember reading the local Jewish newspaper and looking at the various, they had like a spread with all the different Jewish communal agencies, and there were volunteering opportunities. So I said to Claire, look, it's time that I pick an organization. I start to volunteer. Anyways, I'm young, starting out in business, and it could give me an opportunity to meet people and network and so on. I think in the beginning, I thought it was a great networking opportunity. It ended up that it taught me so much more, and I felt so good giving back to the community. And the networking went to the side. There was a couple of people that you meet along the way that help you, in business. But I met so many people that helped me in life. One of the agencies I spent a lot of time with was the Jewish Free Loan Organization. It's an organization that does free loans to the Jewish community, to students, to people in need. And I remember coming home, we would interview loan candidates. I remember speaking to them and hearing about their needs, their difficulties, their challenges, new immigrants, etc. And I was so thankful and grateful for the things that we had and in our life. And it made me it gave me a feeling of gratitude that it's very easy when you're young. Paul, Mary, you should think about this. When you're young, you tend to think people generally, not generalizing, but many people get self-absorbed. They think about their own challenges, their own problems. They think the world is all about them. But when you start to go to volunteer and you deal with people, whether it's through Friendship Circle or other organizations, through JYN, when you're doing Teams for Community, going to seniors residences and helping others. I remember we organized an event when my kids were in JYN. We went and did wheelchair basketball. Playing wheelchair basketball with kids who are in wheelchairs, you feel sorry for them, but they actually feel sorry for you because they're much better than you are. So it actually turns it around on you. My spiritual journey, I guess, began in the aftermath of the 9/11 episode in New York. We started to look at the world that a line in the sand was being drawn between good and evil. And we had to decide, we felt, Claire and I, how are we going to respond to that? And we felt if our enemies hate us so much, then perhaps there should be a response. And what should that response be? We started thinking, years later, Rav Lau expressed it very well. He said that we're not supposed to ask lama, why, but we're supposed to ask lema, for what? This is really something I think that the Lubavitcher Rebbe taught him, spoke to him about, that we're not supposed to ask why things happen. We don't ask why the Holocaust happened. He was a child survivor of the Holocaust, Rav Lau, but we have to do something about it. What is our response? And in short, our response ended up that we went on to Greater Jewish Observance.
So touching on that for a second, Rav Lau, was there any advice, and I heard it was taught in the name of the Rebbe as well. Is there any advice on what that response should be? I know that's a very vague question, of course, right? Because there's so many things that we can say that the response should be, whether it's a spiritual response or an actual physical response in terms of what we should be doing to ourselves in terms of praying and different things. What, in your opinion, what is our response to those that truly have hatred in their hearts and towards us? Like, how do we, as Jewish youth, especially, seeing what's going on right now, and so many of my friends, I'm 22 years old and I'm seeing kids younger than me, of course, like, this isn't just so much youth, we're seeing it throughout generations now. What is the response, in your opinion, to that hatred?
Okay, it's a good question. In terms of response, I'll quote Rav Lau. We had the pleasure of going to the March of the Living. We sent our kids on that trip, and we felt we had to go see the horrors for ourselves firsthand. And I remember he spoke at Birkenau on Yom HaShoah, and he said that if they hate us, if Hitler didn't distinguish between us, and he didn't choose the ones who were wealthy and the ones who were poor versus the ones who were, connected spiritually to the ones who were less connected spiritually, ones who daven 3 times a day to ones who daven once a day, the ones who daven once a month or 3 times a year or whatever it was. Hitler didn't distinguish between us, and the way that he came to us in hate, we have to respond with love. It says the Second Temple was destroyed because of hatred, wanton hatred among Jewish people. And I think our generation has to respond, as the Rebbe taught us. One of his missions was to respond in love. We have to reach out to every Jew. We have to bring them to greater understanding and and do it in a manner of love, without criticism, and without trying to better than somebody else. It's a matter of learning, understanding, and action.
Absolutely. And just to kind of touch on what Cole said before, and taking action and almost feeling that sense of hopelessness as what can I do? You know, you're living this sort of observant lifestyle. We're all sitting here, we see the news, we see these headlines, and as a Jew and as youth, you feel responsible to an extent to do something, to say something, but you don't know to what extent. So do you have anything specific in your history, your lifetime, that was a really big turning point, that I'm not just observing this as a Jew anymore, but I take this personally. I'm going to now stand up and take action doing this? Like, what really did it for you that you felt that you had to get involved and do something? And were there any first steps that you took to taking action rather than just observing it, understanding, and feeling impacted by it?
It's the first steps. So I think it's very important to learn and to understand, because when you start to learn, and Judaism is very deep. There's rules on just about everything. There's an answer to about any question you could ask. If you want to know, should you get a heart transplant or not, you'll probably find an answer to the question. Maybe not exactly, but in an anecdotal way, you're going to find an answer somewhere in the volumes of Torah. You're going to find your questions. There's answers to your questions. I think it's very important for people to understand that, number one, you have to learn. You have to learn. Number two, you have to have a mentor, a spiritual guide, a friend. That's a quote from Ethics of Our Fathers, Pirkei Avot. You have to have somebody to bounce things off with. You mentioned something interesting, Mary. How do you respond? Maybe the answer is don't respond. Sometimes the answer is to respond, and sometimes the answer is don't respond. I don't consider myself an expert. I'm not constantly on social media posting, but I do see things that trouble me. When I hear, among our children, when they're speaking about their friends at dinner table, and I hear this one unfollowed that one because there was a post. I mean, it troubles me. It troubles me because, back to what Rav Lau said, we have to reach out in love to each other, and we don't have to always agree, and we don't share the same viewpoints. We come at things from a different perspective, and everyone's passionate. And it's a beautiful thing that people are passionate about their feelings. But at the same token, there's a way to disagree without being disagreeable. And, we have to find commonality. There's more that unites us than divides us. Doesn't matter where you are on the Jewish spectrum. There's more that unites us than divides us.
Absolutely.
I'm going to jump in here for a second, if that's okay. As a rabbi, and especially we're talking about the current events, talking about the times, I feel that it's very important, especially at a time like this, to strengthen ourselves as Jews. And it's not always easy. It's not always easy. And maybe, Howard, you could tell us a little bit about your spiritual journey, and you share that with others, and everybody could take from it what they want. But the stronger we are as the Jewish people, the stronger we are individually, is the stronger we are as a nation. So it's all interconnected. So maybe, Howard, you could share a little bit on that with us.
Sure. So it says in the Zohar, one of the primary book of the Kabbalah, that the Jewish people are like one body. And in that sense, when someone criticizes the Jewish people, we all feel it personally. And I felt it myself. Or when you open the news, and you read something, God forbid there's an accident or something else happens, something happens in Israel, right away our thought is, it's like our family. What's happening? You need to know what's going on. And we should all feel that, because we are really one body, we're one family. And there's certain rules, certain ways that you relate to your family, and a different way that you maybe relate to people outside of your family. So we should keep that in mind. When we started moving towards our path of our spiritual journey, we started attending synagogue more often. And, through encouragement of a rabbi, I started studying Torah in greater depth. And you have affinity to certain things. And certainly you want to understand the commandments, you want to know what is it that we're supposed to do. And I felt at the beginning, I thought, wow, all these rules, all these do's, these are the list of things to do's, and these are the do not do, so on. It's a very overwhelming list. And, I guess the point is that it's a ladder. You have to look at it as a ladder. You're climbing a ladder. You have to start it somewhere. And one of my early study partners told me, he said, look, think about it like an escalator. You're either on the up escalator or the down escalator. You always have to be doing a little bit more, trying to learn more, improve more, learn about things. But the purpose of learning it is very interesting. Maimonides says the purpose of learning is not just for, unless you're a great Torah scholar and you're spending your days, in the academy, in the yeshiva, the purpose of learning is to put it into action. And if you have an opportunity to put it into action, that's what it's about. So first thing is to learn. And you mentioned something earlier. We're talking about how we respond. One of the ways that we respond is sometimes we've got to bounce things off, either a friend or a spiritual mentor, a guide, a rabbi, something of that nature. If you call Rabbi Shmuel and say, look, this is bothering me, this post, what do I do about it? Sometimes, like I said, the answer is not to respond. Sometimes when you respond, we inflame a situation. So we have to know not only should we or shouldn't we respond, but how do we respond in an appropriate way? These are some of the things. Being part of a warm, loving Jewish community was an amazing, amazing thing that happened as part of our journey. And the fact that people look after each other when it's someone's has a child or a wedding or a bar mitzvah, or you name it, any happy occasion, it's shared by everyone. And as Rev Sachs said, he says, when you share someone else's pain, you cut it in half. So I feel that that's also true. When someone's going through a loss, going through an illness, they're going through a difficult time, it could be a divorce, a breakup of a relationship, whatever it may be. Children are going through difficult things, etc. We have to be there for each other. We have to help each other. And you know what? That has been like one of the greatest things to be a part of.
Absolutely. And just speaking from personal experience, I've been a part of JYN, as I said before, for 5 years, and having the JYN community and Rabbi Shmuley specifically as my mentor to turn to, like you said, when you have questions, like I see a post, what do I do? Or I want to get more involved in the community. How can I help? Where can I volunteer? What should I be doing to be more engaged in my own spirituality and my own journey as a young woman? And I truly believe that no matter what point in life you meet a rabbi, get involved in a Jewish loving community, like you said, it can truly alter and change your life in ways that you never even imagined. I joined when I was really young and really impressionable, but I believe that anyone joining at any age in their life at JYN, speaking to a rabbi, even just listening in on this Zoom meeting live stream right now, it's truly amazing how much you can touch people's hearts and truly just connect to your own spirituality and Judaism.
Great.
And yeah, actually, Mary, I want to build on that for a second. It's funny that you brought that up because I remember one time I was in class, and this is all building off, the importance of having that Jewish identity and having a mentor to turn to. Now, listen, I know Shmuley doesn't love the praise all the time, but I still give it to him because he truly deserves it. He's been my mentor on my spiritual journey for a very long time. And, there was a time in a class where I had this issue with somebody said something that I didn't really know how to respond to. And I kid you not, I walked right out of class. The first thing I did was I called Shmuley and I said to him, I was like, Shmuley, how do I respond to this? And, the importance of having somebody to turn to. And I guess, for all the people that are on this Zoom and watching live right now, whether you are a youth or whether you're a parent of a youth or whether you're a parent and just trying to learn, I mean, having a mentor is so important. And that I'm going to branch into our next point here, which is just the responsibility of living an observant lifestyle and how it holds you to a higher standard. And I just want to know, in your opinion, that responsibility, how much does that hold in your life, and how important is that to hold yourself to that higher standard? And how is that kind of, branched into the things that you're doing now?
Okay, good question. In terms of responsibilities, so something I learned early on, which I think is true, everyone hears the story of somebody who acted inappropriate in business or whatever. They took advantage of them, and it was, the end of the story is that it was a person who was religious, and how could we understand that? What are we supposed to do? So we have to understand that being like the path of Jewish observance is not just something that we do in the synagogue. It's not just something we do at home. We're making the blessings, we're lighting the Shabbos candles for women, and when we're making kiddush for the men, or putting on tefillin, or praying, or studying, etc. It's an all-encompassing part of our lives, and we have to be that same person in the workplace. We have to be that same person when we're with our friends, which means, okay, you don't gossip. I mean, that's like a big part of Judaism. We don't realize it. Says the Talmud tells us that that's like killing a person. When you embarrass another person, you call them by a nickname. You're not supposed to do that. So we have to learn that. We have to honor our parents. I've had the opportunity to do that, not always succeeding, I've had the opportunity to do that for many, many years, working with my father for 25 years. You're not supposed to interrupt, but to build on patience. There's many, many virtues that you learn in a path to Jewish observance that are not necessarily the things that you would think of. You'd think of a person, sitting and learning and praying 3 times a day. There's there's much, much more to it. It's an all-encompassing part of life. First of all, I want to give a caveat. I'm not an expert in this subject of morality. It's a test for all of us, myself included, and we try our best to overcome the battle points, the challenges we face, both within ourselves and with other people. We all face challenges, myself included. I don't want to come off that someone should have a takeaway from here saying, "Oh, this guy's an expert in this topic." I read the ad for the event, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, it puts me out as an expert on this topic." There is no expert in morality. It's a battle that we face every single day of our lives. Now, we don't want to be that person who is. We read about some scandal on the front page of the New York Times. We don't want to be that person. We want to let's just keep it low, lay low, live a good life, and those are the things we want to do. Our actions also, for the good or the bad, as I used to tell my children each day, have an impact far greater than we can ever imagine. And look at how social media impacts this. Now things go viral, they take a life of their own. And, before you know it, you have 1,000 or 2,000 or 10,000 people who watch a post. Something that really troubles me, TikTok. You look at TikTok, and there's almost no censorship of that platform. It really troubles me how the anti-Semitic diatribe goes there, and it's not censored at all, not filtered. So again, we have to know where to respond, how to respond, and if we should respond, and we have to have mentors. So in Ethics of Our Fathers, again, to go back to that source, the question is asked, what is the straight path a person should choose? Rebbe said this. And later on in the same chapter, Rabban Yochanan ben Zakkai said, what is the proper or good way, depending on how you interpret it, to which a person should cleave? So this idea is when you're a young person, you have to find a straight path. Don't go for the crooked path. And as you get older, you have to stay on that path. And it's not always easy. Like I said, the moral challenges, ethical challenges are a lifelong obstacle. That's something we have to overcome every day. So there's a concept in Judaism of sanctifying or desecrating God's name. And we have to be aware of this. It's like we live with these scales, and all of our actions, for the good or the bad, could have an impact for the good or the bad. So, for example, in our relationship with other Jews, we have to be aware of that. We have to, like I said, honor our parents. We have to be careful of harmful speech, gossip. So how does that apply to me in business? You can't speak about a competitor. You can't, if somebody comes to you and they say, look, I got your quote and I have somebody else's quote. What do you have to say about it? I mean, you can point out why, what you're doing, or if they show you the scope, you can comment on it. But again, you have to be careful. It's not becoming of a person to speak in such a way about their competitor. We have to love our neighbor as ourselves. That's a great principle of the Torah when you're Rabbi Kiva. You have to, included in that, not only do you have to love someone as much as you love yourself, you have to love yourself. And as my daughter told me, Jordana, she said, you don't catastrophize. And apparently that's a big issue among younger generation. You have to realize, put things into perspective. We have to have faith. We have to understand certain things in our control. For the Jewish people, there's a lot to be proud of. We're all guarantors for the other. We're like parts of a single body. We have to remain united. And that's a relationship. That's how I see a relationship with family. Now, on the other hand, with the wider community, the broader community, interestingly, in the Talmud, it talks about when you're in business and you cheat a non-Jew, you're actually desecrating God's name. Because we're all ambassadors for the Jewish people. If we're all one, and the Jewish people are like one body and one soul, together, united, then when we do something wrong, if you cheat someone in business, so I had a situation that happened to me last month. We had a supplier sent us an invoice. I was looking through the invoices, approving the payments, and I saw the invoice us for some plywood. And I noticed that they invoiced us at a penny a sheet. On the one hand, when you're in business, you want to make as much money as possible with as little effort as possible. That's like the profit motivation that people have. On the other hand, you see, it's not right. Obviously, people hear that the price of wood and steel and other construction materials are going up like crazy. A penny a sheet is not the right number. So you know what? I decided I'm going to call them. I'm going to let them know that they made a mistake. They should review. They should check to make sure other people don't get billed for that, in that way. You know, you might say, well, who cares? You know, no one's going to know. It's only me. It's me, you, and the invoice or whatever. No one's going to know who's going to go back on that invoice. Well, in these verses where it talks about weights and measures in the Torah, it says, I am your God, Ani Hashem. And we know from that, we learn from that, the commentary, it says that God's watching us at all times. And God knows. And we can't take a penny more or penny less than God decrees that we're supposed to earn. So we have to be careful. And, I will add to that, when you cheat a non-Jew, when you look at an observant Jew, you also have a standard. Because someone who is perhaps more secular, they look at a Jewish person, a person who's more observant, you may judge them. How can you not be honest? As I said earlier, you have a higher standard. You have to be careful. In business, it's an extra measure. You have to be careful when you're measuring something. We deal with a lot of widows in our business, older people, built up real estate, and we're dealing with them. And it's an extra burden when you're dealing with a widow. It's something you wouldn't think of, that it's in Judaism, it's in the Torah. You want to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to kind of touch on the point you said before about going into what is in our control and what is not, I know that sometimes it can be hard because we're often sent many tests our way. And I think one of the tests that you just went through was that invoice and, coming forth or not coming forth. And even if nobody knew, you knew. And that was enough for you to be forthcoming and call the guy back up and say, hey, something wasn't right. So I think sometimes it's a little bit difficult, even as a youth, to kind of, understand what's in our control and what we're able to change and fight for and stand up for, and what is not, and when to be quiet. Do you have any advice or anything that you particularly look for, that when it's best to stay quiet, or when something is more so in your control and you can do something about it versus when you can't?
You know what, Mary, I'm actually going to touch on that and just build on that question for a second, because Howard, you did mention TikTok as well. And that's something that I know the younger generation for sure is fully involved in. And in terms of staying silent or not, Mary, I love that question you just brought up, because, TikTok, as you mentioned, is, and I guess all social media right now, I think the guidelines are a little skewed right now on what can be posted and what can be said. And you see a lot of harmful things on there, and you can't really choose what you see, right? So the way TikTok works with the algorithm is they'll just kind of push the content that they believe that you want to see, and this and that. And you don't really have a say in it. You can report it, or you can say you're not interested, but at the end of the day, you still get it. So I guess kind of tying into Mary's question, even in the new age of this social media and knowing when to stay silent, when to make a stand, knowing when, your silence might be even louder than the stand you take. Yeah. I'd love to hear more about that as well.
Yeah, so I want to step backwards before I step forward.
Okay.
Answer your question about staying silent. So another issue in business that's a big ethical issue is when you're in sales. So when you're in sales, there's a concept in Judaism that you're not supposed to put a stumbling block before the blind. And there's been much written about this. It doesn't mean only a blind person. It does include a blind person, but it means that you can't give someone bad advice. So let's say, Cole, you have an internet business and you're selling stuff on Amazon. And you're saying that you got a new improved hand sanitizer and you want to sell it to everybody, and it's better than everything else on the market. You have to be able to substantiate your claim. Let's say you're talking to someone, or I'm talking to someone in my business. I have to make sure that the things I say are true. So if I say that, when we go to make an assessment of something, so let's say you're a lawyer and you're making an assessment of someone's will, or you're reading over an agreement. It could be that you take issue with something in an agreement. Will. In my case, I look at a building and I go assess a roof condition. Someone asks me, give me your honest opinion. What do I need to do? You have to be honest. You can't give them advice that's going to benefit you. I mean, ultimately, it's a very, very high standard. And we have to be aware of it. And again, this comes right out of the Torah. It's as important as eating kosher and praying 3 times a day and putting on tefillin and lighting Shabbos candles. It says that we're not supposed to minimize the minor commandments and the major ones, because we don't know which ones are minor and major. And one of the things it says in the Talmud is when you get to heaven, they're going to ask you the first question, Paul, what do you think?
Howard, you're gonna have
Were
to
you
tell me that
honest in
one.
business? Were you honest in business? That's the first question they're going to ask you. Among the first
Howard,
questions.
Howard, you mean they're not going to ask you how popular you were on TikTok? That's not the question.
I hope not.
And you know what? It's funny because even in real estate, it's so funny that you're bringing all this stuff up. I'm in real estate right now, and it's almost like the real estate guidelines were written in accordance with the Torah as well. I mean, not that everybody follows it, and that's where we see that divide of, you know, what's morally right and what's morally wrong, right? In the real estate world, you're supposed to say, you know, when a third party needs to get involved, let's say, you know, we're dealing with a home inspector, and you know, you're looking at someone, you're trying to make a quick sale, you say, oh, the electrical looks great. I don't know a thing about electrical, so of course, you know, the thing and from a moral standpoint and from what we're told is that we need to reach out to those people that, you know, not just to make a quick buck and just advise and make the money. It's truly about taking that knowledge that we have and doing the best that we can with it, and then turning to other people when we need help or really looking into those things. So as you said, with that Amazon business, you see a lot of people that advertise things online. There's something called drop shipping now, where, you know, you're just sending products in from China and selling it without seeing them. There's a lot of that going on right now. So it's definitely something that, you know, people need to be aware of from a Jewish standpoint and from a common moral standpoint. So it's great to tie those two in as well.
Real estate is a huge problem. Imagine you're making a brochure or whatever online, you're putting a listing together, you know, so weights and measures. It says that the burden of getting accurate weights and measures is a huge one in the Torah. So you're measuring up a space and you're putting, you know, a condo or a house for sale, and you got to measure up every room. Got to make sure those measurements are accurate. If you advertise a house, someone's paying a price per square foot based on the size of the house, and you make a mistake and you're posting there, it's a big burden because someone might overpay, and later on, you know, what happens, you know, it can be a challenge. Anyways, I just wanted to step back before going forward.
For sure.
You asked me, Mary, earlier, what can we do? So really, we have to get knowledge. Before we respond on social media, I think we have to learn about what it is we're posting. You know, my understanding, and I've been guilty of it as well, is sometimes we read something and we're like, yeah, that sounds amazing. And sometimes we don't look at the authenticity of the post that we're reading or the content. And you know what? It's not correct. Or someone says, oh, did you check that out on Snopes? There's it's fake news. You know, we need to know what's accurate and what's not accurate. Or sometimes there's a video that's posted and it's been doctored. It's so easy to doctor things on the internet. And we need to make sure that when we're posting or liking or whatever we might be doing on social media, these kind of things, that we have the knowledge to know that what we're saying is accurate. It's true. Because again, back to, you know, harmful speech. If we're posting something that's harmful, or, you know, we're speaking badly about another Jewish person or calling them out on something we've done, and we don't have the whole story, we don't take the time to investigate, and it's a problem. And imagine, because when there's millions of eyes looking at something, the transgression, if you will, can be multiplied many times over in our sleep. So it's a great burden on social media to make sure that what we're posting, what we're liking, is accurate. And these are great tests of faith. And every generation has their own tests. Abraham in his generation, you know, Moses in his generation, Samuel in his generation, and we have our tests in our generation. And social media is a great test of our generation. The fact that information flies around the internet at such an amazing speed and goes all around the world is really unbelievable. And we have to know when to, like I said, we have to learn, make sure that we got accurate information. We got to know when to stay silent. We got to know what we're saying. We got to have a spiritual guide, a mentor, a friend, even a friend. It doesn't have to be a rabbi all the time, but sometimes a friend. You bounce it off a friend and say, you know what, that doesn't make sense what you're saying. I saw a different post that had a different perspective on this issue. Before you go and post something, or before you write it, you know, bounce it off somebody that you know. Maybe, you know, Rav Dessler says, very important, we're not objective when it comes to ourselves. We think of ourselves in a very good light. We think that whatever we know is the best, and so on. Tend to have a high opinion of ourselves, people in general. And it's good when you have a friend, they cut you down to size. They don't want to give give it to you. You know, Cole, maybe you better check that listing. I looked it over, and you know, that swimming pool that you said, you know, it's an above ground pool, and it's you know, it doesn't have the facets that you mentioned. So.
Absolutely. And I think even myself, I've found myself in multiple different times having dialogue with friends, colleagues, just anyone willing to have this conversation with me, because I do find myself knowledgeable on the topic. And I think one of the the biggest issues myself, alongside many of my friends, have found is that we do feel knowledgeable, and we feel as though we've reached out to mentors such as Rabbi Shmuley and our Jewish community and tried to just really connect ourselves in Judaism. And it's like, when you have that knowledge, how far do you go to spread that knowledge? What's too much? When is it better to stay silent? When are you doing a disservice to the Jewish community in Israel when you stay silent? And just, I think having that dialogue is really important. I've had multiple conversations with my family, my friends, everyone's so shaken up about the entire situation. We really feel for Israel and everyone going through this conflict, that it's kind of hard to stay silent, especially when you feel like you have the knowledge. However, sometimes the silence is what's needed.
Right. I agree. And listen, I'm going to throw out a challenge to you, Cole and Mary. You came through a great program, and you were both leaders in JYN, and to that extent, you're mentors, and you have to mentor others. There's a story of the carob tree that's planted. Someone saw this story of the Talmud. They saw a carob tree being planted. He said to the guy, Yoni, why are you planting a carob tree? It takes 70 years to grow. You're an old man. You're not going to live to see the fruit of this tree. He said, just like my ancestors planted for me, I'll plant for them. So that's the idea. We're an unending chain. We're the Jewish people. We're compared to a chain all the way back to Abraham and Sarah. And we have to remember that that's who we come from. We have great ancestry, and their struggles are our struggles. And we learn from them, and we learn. We can continue to learn. It's a lifelong thing. You don't just stop learning. Nobody's learned everything they need to know, and they just stop learning. And it says that the more you learn on your own, you learn even more when you have a student, when you teach someone, when you explain something you've learned to someone else. So in terms of actions, we didn't speak about that. I'd like to touch on that, if I may, for a minute. So we have to make ourselves into a vessel for God's blessing. And that comes in many ways. We want to have a good life. We want to find a suitable partner. We want to, God willing, have children. We want to have a good income that we don't have to struggle for, and we don't have to go to the ends of the earth or work with toil that we don't have any time to enjoy or relax. We want to have certain things in life, certain blessings. We want God to shower us with his blessings. And in order to do that, we have to be a vessel to receive blessings. And how do we do that? So there's a few action items. I made a little list here of some things that each one of you on the call could do. We could pray for the soldiers of Israel. We certainly need our prayers. They're putting themselves in harm's way. And without a safe Israel, there's no safe Jewish person anywhere in the world. Whether or not we agree with everything they do or how they do it or so on, nevertheless, they represent us. We're lucky that we live in a generation when there is an Israel, and it's an autonomous Jewish government there. And we could always do more and do better and so on. And we disagree with policies. But at the end of the day, it's like your cousin or your brother or your sister, right? Or your aunt that you disagree with. But at the end of the day, you're family. There's no one like family. Trust them, and you have to work with them, and you have to care for them. And when there's wounded citizens and soldiers of Israel, you have to pray for them. You can recite a chapter of Tehillim, whether it's our own chapter of Tehillim in the book of Psalms, or we can recite a chapter for somebody who's wounded, injured, hurt. If you hear of a friend who's sick or a parent, or a relative, somebody who needs a blessing, you can recite a chapter of Tehillim. Open up the book. Psalm 20 is a good one. Psalm 121. Rabbi Shmuley can give you a list of the appropriate psalms to read for certain situations. For the women in the community, we can light Shabbos candles. For the gentlemen, we can put on tefillin, we can give charity. These are things that everyone can do. It doesn't require hours, and you don't have to go to the end of the earth. You can learn Torah. For the first group of people that logged onto the call, we prepared a book to give out. It's a book called Gate of Trust, and it's especially adapted for our times. It was written over 1,000 years ago in Spain by a Sephardic rabbi, but it's been adapted to our times. Talks about anxiety, wealth, health, all the different issues that a person could face in their lifetime, and how to deal with them. How to deal with children. How to deal with children. How to deal. We don't have children. What are you supposed to do? It's amazing. He has one chapter he deals with children. The next chapter he deals with what if you don't have children? How are you supposed to respond? How are you supposed to feel joy? How are you supposed to feel good about it? You can perform acts of kindness. Every one of us can do this. We can visit a sick person. We can honor our parents. You know someone is getting married. You guys are at the age when people are going to start to get married. Make a bride happy. Do something, anything. It doesn't matter what it is exactly. If there's a friend who has in their family a funeral and they need to do a service at the graveside. Difficult now in COVID times. Go to the funeral, go to the Shiva house, welcome guests in your home. Or if there are guests in your home, make sure that you make time for them, sit and talk to them, learn from them. Express gratitude. You know, an easy prayer for everyone to say is the Modani prayer. The Lubavitcher Rebbe said that was his favorite prayer. A child asked him, what's your favorite prayer? And he answered Modani. Be thankful that we wake up and that God restores the spirit of life into our bodies each day. It doesn't even have God's name, but yet that was his favorite prayer. We have to express gratitude. Our first words on our lips each day should be words of gratitude. We thank God for giving us another day. And instead of looking at all the troubles and all the problems and all the things in the world that are not right, let's look at the things that are right. You can look at, as the proverbial saying goes, the glass half full or the glass half empty. You have to be positive. You have to stay calm. I'll finish with three quick quotes. Number one, Shimon Peres, he said, optimism provides the inspiration we need, especially in hard times. And look at the challenges we face now. Here in Canada, in Israel, in the Jewish world, many, many challenges. The third Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, he said in Yiddish, Tracht gut, wird sein good. Think good and it will be good. The mere exercise of thinking positively produces positive results. Our thoughts can actually influence the outcomes. And we have to think good and it will be good. Everything God does is good. I can't tell you how. I'm not going to be God's defense attorney. I'm not going to tell you how to interpret events. But ultimately, if we have the long view of life and we see things in this world and in the next world, we see that everything God does is for the good, it's for the best. I will end with the blessing of the prophet Zechariah, who said, "V'ha'emet v'hashalom ehavu." So he said that we should have this prayer, we should have this in mind in the words of the father of Rav Soloveitchik, that truth and peace should be reconciled with the coming of Mashiach. B'mhera v'yameinu amen.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Howard, for being here, for sharing your story with us, for sharing that blessing with us. It was truly beautiful. And I wanted to specifically thank your son for his service in the IDF. It was an absolute pleasure meeting you and speaking with you today. And I hope everyone enjoyed. I know I absolutely did. It was amazing. And thank you guys all for letting me be a part of this. It was lovely meeting you. And I'm going to let Cole say his little goodbye and Rabbi Shmuley wrap it up. But it was absolutely lovely meeting you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. And these events are truly incredible, getting the insight for us, the youth, and, the people involved in this program and the people that are listening around. It's super important for us to have this involvement and to be able to hear from somebody with such great wisdom and, get sort of that insight that we might need in a time like this. And I truly appreciate Howard, you coming on here and sharing your insight with us, and Rabbi Shmuley for allowing us to host, and Mary, of course, for just asking those questions that, sometimes I hear and I'm like, wow, that was truly a great question. And that was something that I wanted to know as well. So thank you, everybody. Rabbi Shmuley, take it away. And thank you guys so much.
I just want to thank you, Cole. Just want to finish off by saying that as Cole and Mary, the reflection of their questions is certainly a product of our time. And that is that there's a lot of turmoil out there, and we know that. And we have to continue doing things like this. And I think, just to summarize something, my takeaway from this, and everybody could take away what they want, is the stronger we are and the more focused we are on what Hashem has taught us through the Torah, and everybody could do what they need to do to be a strong and proud Jew. This impacts everything about us, and it will help us in our business. It will help us as a teenager. It will help us in our challenges in social media. It will help us have focus to find our path. And we need to continue asking questions and continue learning. But the spiritual journey is far from over, but we're very focused. We're a spiritual nation. And through that strength, and through the fact that we know our moral compass in our business, in our day-to-day life, in our interaction with people, is through the guide of Hashem, through the guide of Torah. And we hold ourselves continuously as the Jewish nation to a higher and higher level of what we need to do. That's going to guide us. It's going to guide us through the turbulent times of now. So have no fear, everybody. They are difficult. It's okay. They are difficult, and we will be strong. We will be stronger. We will continue to help each other and guide each other and support each other. And it's great to be able to hear from people who have done that in their life and in their family, and in their business, and we could all learn from that. And everybody should take away something that makes them a stronger Jew. That's the real way to combat this, and we've done that for 3,000 years, 3,333 since Monday this week that we celebrate Shavuot, and we will do it, as Howard said, till Mashiach comes. I want to wish everybody good health, prayers for our brothers and sisters in Israel, that they should be safe, and hope to see everybody, God willing, in person soon in good health. Thank you, Howard, so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, have a wonderful day, everybody. And it's already past Tuesday, so Shabbat Shalom to everybody, and we'll see you soon.